say this, just threw this out there, but here are some that we found that are, here's the thing, you can find bad stuff on every social media site. You can find bad stuff on Instagram, you can find bad stuff on Twitter, all right, which are the more tame ones. Facebook is actually the best at keeping explicit images out of even the stream of posting. But these are ones that are especially bad. So I would just say if you're checking your student's phone or laptop every once in a while, and they have this, you're going to need to have a conversation with them. These are ones that are more often than not only used for sharing explicit or anonymous images. Ask FM is more like, that was popular in the UK, and that's more cyberbullying and now explicit images. Sorry.
I'm sorry, are they apps?
Yeah, they're apps. They're Kik and Yik Yak are more social media oriented. Ask is more like a search engine, like a Yahoo Answers kind of thing. Like you can post any question you want, and they can post whatever they want in response.
And it's all anonymous.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, these are. Yeah, that's why these are the.
Yeah. If you read about Kik, you kind of be like, oh, that's a really cool kind of combining a lot of social media things in one place. But you look at the App Store, it rates it as like 17+, and it's part of that stuff. There's anonymous. It doesn't. There's not really privacy, so anybody can contact you. Anybody could send you an image, and a lot of that stuff was happening on that website and on that app. And I think 8 out of the 30 kids in middle school reported using Kik. And when we did our sex thing that the workshop we did with the kids, not this year but last year, a lot of them said the big thing was to go on a lot of these anonymous websites or anonymous apps. And you just kind of like move, and whenever you get uncomfortable, you get out of there. But they would like get on there to sort of joke with all their friends, but then they were going back, and you're talking anonymously, or people can send pictures over that kind of stuff, and there's just a lot of those things out there.
Yeah, I mean, dig down to the root issue there. Anonymity is behind most of the bad stuff on the internet, right? If something is famous for the fact that it keeps you anonymous, most often that will lead to the worst kind of sharing images, any of that stuff. And that drills down into a spiritual truth, which is when the dirtiest deeds happen in darkness. We need to expose them and bring them into the light, and the light is where goodness and a relationship with God dwells and thrives. And so we know our depravity in our own hearts, and if we're able to do things anonymously, then that's when we do the worst things and allow the worst sides of us to come out. So there's that spiritual truth that makes sense in the light of social media. Okay, moving on.
So we want to jump in and give you guys some thoughts around actually how you can kind of enter into this process, how you can come alongside your kids, how you can be a parent in and amongst all this stuff. Before you race home and just confront them and step away, give your out exactly. And blame us, yeah.
And no kids show up.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. All the numbers start to climb. What's going on? Before all that happens, we want to give you guys some thoughts on really how you can enter in and how you can come alongside them, and how this can go back to what we talked about earlier, helping create a Jesus-following mature adult who goes to the college dorm room and is filled with wisdom and as much of identity as they can at 18, since it now goes to the mid-20s. But just where they're in that process and you've helped them and guided them along. So regulation is not about ultimate protection or trying to isolate them from the dangers, because we know we can't do that, right? And if a lot of what Doug says is true, and it's true in my experience, a lot of the dangers they've already been exposed to. So regulation really is about, and kind of regulating this whole social media thing, is about building wisdom and walking alongside an adolescent so that they can handle the college dorm room and become the person God is creating them to be. So it's just this idea of how do we start here and help them in the mess of all this stuff. So you can go to the next one. A couple words of warning as we jump in. Like whenever we'll go to like a youth ministry conference, they throw out all these ideas and we're there for days. And one of the things they say is, don't go home and implement this. Like sit on it, think about it, And so again, just be careful about confrontation. Because, as you confront the student about some of these things, it can often lead to shutdown, and they go back into secrecy and they keep you out of what they're doing. And the goal that we want to help you guys create is healthy communication around this, so that it's a conversation, it's an experience you guys are entering into together. A way to do that, and there's probably better ones than these, but just asking non-confrontational questions. As you're observing things, as you're seeing things, say, why do you think that post got so many comments? I noticed the status you said or something, or I just just learned about this new app. Do you know what it is? And just play the fool and play like you don't know. Or what do you notice about your friends online? Are they on all the time? Are they using a bunch of sites? Or people, just kind of opening questions, just non-confrontational, just hearing where they're at as you enter into some of these conversations. Also, too, no perfect parents needed. I don't know where, Mark some of you are on a bunch of different places of the journey, but just want to encourage you that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know everything. Like, I think that's one of the most overwhelming things. Like I said, that book, 2012, it's already out of date. You just sort of feel like so overwhelmed, but really just our heart today is just to stay engaged with them, be in relationship with them, and the rest will work itself out. God does incredible things in the context of relationship. And I give a lot of the credit to my identity, to who I am, to the way I was able in high school to avoid a bunch of things that I was surrounded by. I was constantly surrounded by things that I never felt a lot of temptation to totally enter into. And I give a lot of credit to my parents because I knew they loved me, I knew they cared for me, and I knew they were walking alongside me. So you don't have to be perfect. My parents were not perfect. We could have a whole other session on how not my parents weren't perfect. But, they weren't. But I came away with a sense of identity from being in a relationship with them. And for God, today matters, and tomorrow's full of possibilities. So if you feel like you're already getting too deep on some of this stuff, there's no way to regulate it. Your kids are way over here, and you want to start way back here. All that stuff. Just as we're in Holy Week, and Jesus looks and says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Today, God can do something incredible, and tomorrow's full of possibilities. So trust God in all of this. So now we'll jump into, and this kind of goes back to what Doug was just saying with the secrecy stuff. There's a premise that they throw out in this book. It just says, where leads to what? And as we start to think about regulation, I think one of the things you're going to think about is where they're accessing all this stuff. We talked about how they have constant access. Even if they don't have a smartphone, they have an iPod Touch. That maybe is internet connectivity, and they're in their house in their own room, or they just have privacy with all these internet-connected devices. So often, where leads to what? And in general, the more secretive the practice, the more dangerous the situation. And that's kind of what we were just talking about. So this book is by two authors, and I just thought this might be helpful for you guys. It has two kind of examples of how they deal with this. Adam he creates apps. He has a youth social media thing, teaches about all this stuff, and his kids are a little bit younger. But he says, practically speaking, no one, including mom and dad, is allowed to play video games, work on laptops, or use any other internet-connected device in a room alone. Even when someone's home alone, that person uses a computer in public spaces, such as the living room, as opposed to the bedroom. So you can see they're pretty strict. Like, there's no alone time with internet-connected devices. This other guy, Marco, he's been in youth ministry for years. He's a blogger. He's into social media, that kind of thing. A big youth ministry guy. He says our rules have the same spirit as Adam's, but maybe not the same firm boundaries. Maybe because we're lazier parents, or maybe because we're less idealistic because our kids are older than Adam's are. But we currently have 5 laptops for 4 people in our house. Each of us has a laptop, and there's a central family computer on a desk in the family room. Our general practice is that online surfing, hanging out in social media land, and other non-homework practices are done in public spaces. Homework can be done in a bedroom, but with one parent in the loop. And when we went through a period where boundaries were crossed, we firmed up the rules and took away the cell phone privileges in the bedroom as well. And so you can see, as we enter into, I'm going to throw out some suggestions for how you can regulate. And this is going to be something you guys might vary on, how you decide to do this. You might vary on when the age is appropriate for them to enter in. You might vary on a bunch of different things. But hopefully these are guidelines that you can still take something away with. And again, going back to the backdrop of creating a Jesus-following adult. So here's some suggestions on some things. We passed out at the beginning a contract that a family in our community drew up for their kids. You can see my name's on there in one of the parts. It says don't post anything on there, and it has a list of people and my name. And the kid unfortunately violated the contract, and so I saw what was there, and we met and we talked about it. But they're very thorough in this, and so this can give you an idea of some regulation stuff. But here's some just simple things as well. So make access to social media a rite of passage. And this is for you guys, especially if you have younger children who haven't entered this world yet. Talk with your spouse, your family, figure out an age where you think it's appropriate, and make it a rite of passage. Make it a big deal. I was talking to my wife and asking her, we were just kind of going through this, when do we think? And if all things stay the same, which they won't, but by the time our kids get there, if all things were equal and it was as it is now, we were thinking 7th grade might be an appropriate time that we would start to let them enter into this world. And we'll talk about more of how we do that in a minute. But make it a rite of passage. Make it something you celebrate. And along with that,